want to thank you for joining us today. My name is Scott Cassell. I am with the Product Stewardship Institute, and I am the facilitator for the advisory board. So let's move on now to a quick roll call. Board members, when I call your name, please raise your hand or give a wave and say here. And I will start with Liz Chapman from the advisory board chair, nonprofit seat.
Present, Liz Chapman with Recycle Colorado.
Great, thank you for joining us. And I know that you're a little under the weather, so we really appreciate you being here. Thank you. The Trade Association seat, Scott DeFife.
Scott DeFife, Glass Packaging Institute.
Hi, Scott. Thank you. Non-front, and you're I didn't hear you so well, but I could see you with your mouth moving. So can you talk, say a couple of more words so I can see if it's working, your audio? Can't hear you. So perhaps you can work with Brandon on the side there. We definitely want to hear your voice. All right, non-front range local government seat, advisory board vice chair, Gail Gary.
Good afternoon, Gail Gary, City of Steamboat Springs City Council.
Great, welcome, Gail. Retailers Association seat, Chris House.
Chris House, president of the Colorado Retail Council, and like the porcupine, I'm trying to not be too prickly after coming back from vacation. Good to see everybody.
Welcome back. All right, landfill with recycling seat, Barrett Jensen.
Good afternoon, Barrett Jensen, Waste Connections of Colorado, and I'm here.
Internet's working for you there, Barrett. Great, nice to have you. Murph seat, Rick Cater.
Cater, good afternoon. Here, Murphs.
Hi, Rick. Municipality seat, Caroline Mitchell.
Caroline Mitchell, City of Fort Collins.
Hi, Caroline. County seat, Jake Neese, who was the first AB member on the call.
Hi, Jake Neese, Erie County Commissioner.
All right. I know Junior Ortega, I understand, is not here. The environmental justice seat. Correct. Okay. Recyclable material hauler seat, Mark Petrovich.
Yeah, here, Mark Petrovich, Republic Services.
Mark. Okay, compost facility seat, Clinton Sander.
Mechanics.
Just heard the last part, Clinton. Say that one more time so we know that your internet's working.
How about now? Can you hear me now? Clinton Sander,
much better.
A1 Organics, Compost
Great.
Manufacturing seat.
Thank you.
Yep.
Packaging supplier seat, Scott Saunders. No. Okay. Non-voting department seat, Wolf Cray.
Everyone, good afternoon. Wolf Cray, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment.
Hi, Wolf. And non-voting PRO seat, Peter Hargreave.
Present. Nice to see everyone.
Excellent. All right, so I will move on, move us to our business meeting. The first item of business is to approve the summary of the last meeting. That's meeting 27 and the second technical work session number 2 summary. So 2 at once here. We're going to do it together. Does anyone have any feedback, or would someone like to make a motion to approve both the meeting number 27 summary and the technical work session number 2 summary? So first, any feedback? Jake.
Yeah, just want to note that in the meeting number 27 summary, my name is spelled incorrectly. It's on page 2 under the welcome section. It's spelled as J-A-C-E, should be J-A-K-E.
Great. Okay. May all changes be that minor, but that is important because it's your name. Thank you. Any other comments, changes? Okay, then can I entertain a motion to approve both?
Jake Neese, Erie County, I'll move to approve the meeting number 28 and meeting number 27 summaries.
It's meeting number 27 summary and technical work session number 2 summary.
Okay.
This is meeting number 28, so.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay, was looking at the wrong thing. So I'll withdraw that motion due to lack of a second, and I will make a new motion to approve meeting number 27 summary and the technical work session number 2 summary.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
That Gail Gary, Steamboat Springs City Council, I'll second that motion.
Great, thank you, Gail. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say
Aye.
Raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, the motion for approval of meeting number 27 summary and the technical work session number 2 summary is approved unanimously. Okay, next I'll go over our agenda for today, and then we'll dive into business. So here is today's agenda that's up on the screen, which includes department updates first from Darla. Then we'll have updates from Pete at Circular Action Alliance. Then we will take a 5-minute break. Then we'll have an introduction to eco-modulation by Pete and Darla to prepare for our next technical work session on July 25th. Then we'll have public comment if there is any, and then we'll have meeting summary and wrap up. So with that, I will turn it over to Darla to provide the department updates. Darla?
All right, thank you so much, Scott. I'm Darla Ahrens with the state of Colorado. The first update I have for you today is regarding some outreach that the department conducted to local governments and to service providers throughout the state to share information about the program and let folks know how to get involved in our implementation. And we work collaboratively with CAA in drafting the message and in building the listserv. And so then on June 26th, we sent messages to 246 service providers in the state and 217 local governments. So if you are a service provider or a local government listening in right now and you did not receive this message, if you could please email eprcomments@state.co.us to let us know. We'll be sure to add you to our list and then forward that message to you. And Brandon will post that email in the chat now. The second update I have is to let you know that on June 26th, we received a notice of intent to file an individual program plan or an IPP from the Lubricant Packaging Management Association, or LPMA. And their intended product scope for their IPP is for the management of packaging for automotive applications such as oil-based lubricants, grease, engine additives, and other fluids. And the materials that are used in this type of packaging are typically high-density polyethylene or HDPE, polypropylene or PP, polyethylene, PE, and can also comprised of metal, cardboard, paper, and sometimes other materials. The department is in the process of reviewing that notice of intent. So if it's accepted, LPMA will be then required to develop a coordination plan with CAA, and they would also be required to submit an individual plan proposal to the advisory board by January 1st, 2025. So we will bring you another update at our next business meeting with more information to let you know next steps on that. And then the last and final update I have is a quick one, and that's simply to let you know that we are in the final approval process phase for the appointment of the manufacturer of recycled paper product seat that's currently vacant on our board. There was a pretty major staffing change in the office of our executive director in the last month that has created a little bit of a delay in some of our regular business activities, but we hope to have an appointment by next month, and we'll definitely give you an update on that. So happy to answer any questions about any of these updates, if anybody has any. All right. Seeing none, Scott, I will turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Darla. Next, we will now move on to updates from CAA on the cost formula for reimbursement, minimum recyclable and additional materials list, plan proposal, stakeholder consultation, those three. And over to you, Pete.
Perfect. Maybe we just move one more slide, actually 2 more slides forward. That would be great. Just wanted to follow up on the cost reimbursement side. Obviously, we spoke about this at the last technical meeting. There were a few questions I think I didn't fully answer. So there was a question about how often do producers report for the amount of materials going into the state to CAA. That will be an annual supply. They will annually report their supply to CAA, so it'll be once a year that those organizations will report into us. And there was a further question around, if there are major changes in volumes, increases or decreases, how do the dues take that into account? And simply we look at the system costs, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit as well as we talk about eco-modulation, but we're looking at the overall system costs, and we're applying those costs to the materials that are being supplied into the marketplace. You will get updated supply data on an annual basis. So those producer dues will reflect changes that are happening in the marketplace. And if there are more materials than expected, that is the reason that reserves are built into place if there are concerns around the need for additional reimbursement into the system. So I don't know if there were any other questions that folks had as part of that reimbursement. I know we went through an awful lot in that session. So certainly want to be able to provide any additional opportunity if there were other questions that came up. We have tried to, as usual, provide responses to all of the questions in the materials that are available for the advisory board. And if not, I'll move just over one additional slide. So I just wanted to provide an update on the additional materials list. As part of some of the outreach that we have been doing, we were made aware that there were some municipalities that were collecting polystyrene as part of their programs, and that there is an organization in Colorado that is taking and recycling those materials. We are looking potentially at adding that material into the additional materials list. Those materials, it appears right now, are largely being collected simply just at depot. So they're being collected at a depot and then being collected from those sites and consolidated and recycled from there. So again, I think one of the premises we looked at is we want to be, as long as markets are there for these materials, we want to be making sure that we're not taking any steps backwards in the materials that are being collected and processed. So this was brought to our attention, and we will look to adjust the additional materials list to include this material. So I don't know if there was any questions or concerns from the group on that side. Rick?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the designation of how it will be collected or processed, this is really not something that should be included in single stream at any time.
Yeah, understood on that side, Rick. I think the current system right now is collecting it source separated in separate containers and processed that way. Certainly understand that there is a great deal of potential contamination that can happen with this material. Polystyrene can be quite sticky on a lot of materials. So I think that the consideration right now is to add it to the additional materials list as a depot material that would be collected source separated.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions for Pete at this time?
Pete,
Chris?
Chris House, Colorado Retail Council. How you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah.
Just wondering if I've got this right. The producers will report to the PRO what they're sending into the state, and then I guess they'll kind of be presented with an invoice to pay in. And knowing humans like I do, just wondering if there's any ever discussion about a process for which there might be disagreements on one end or the other. I don't want to create problems where there's none, but sometimes people say, "Well, I just don't agree with what you sent me." Was there any discussion about that, or have we thought about it?
And sorry, Chris, I just want to make sure I understand what you're talking about. Do you mean in the sense that that there's concerns about the supply numbers that are provided, that they look deficient potentially in a way, or are we talking about what the costs associated with the invoice would be?
Yeah, just any sort of discrepancies. Maybe I'm way off track here, but I guess they'll report in, the producers will report in, and then the PRO will expect a certain amount of money. And sometimes in between those steps, people just disagree on, the numbers.
Yeah. So Chris, as part of the participant agreement that producers would sign as part of operating the program, there are obligations that they would have as part of that. That could include things like the ability to audit the numbers that are being supplied. So if there was a concern potentially around somebody underreporting, there is the ability to check those numbers. I will follow up with you about whether there's a potential dispute around the invoice. If potentially something was incorrectly calculated, I would assume there would be some sort of a process to address whether if there was a dispute around what the fee was being charged on the invoice. I need to go back to the team just to get additional information, but we can bring that back to the group.
Yeah, dispute resolution. That's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chris. Let me go back to the group again. Caroline.
Caroline Mitchell, City of Fort Collins. Peter, I know we spoke extensively about the minimum recyclables list and the additional materials list, but it's been a little while now. So just to make sure that we're sort of giving the appropriate feedback around the styrofoam, could you just give us a real quick reminder of what it means for the expanded polystyrene to be on the AML here in the short term?
Yeah, so the minimum recyclables list I'll start with, which the requirements around the minimum recyclable list are it needs to be collected. Those materials need to be collected statewide. It's like a standardized list. You have to collect these materials statewide, and they need to be as accessible as garbage collection. So those are those materials. For the additional material list, these are materials that the Pro has greater flexibility with those materials to collect them within the state, but not necessarily at that curbside. So they could choose to potentially, let's say, every municipality in the mountains is collecting this material, but it's not getting collected in the Front Range or the Eastern Plains. There could be a decision to say, we're just continue to collect that. We may look to expand that over time, but we're only going to collect it in that one region. There could be a decision to say, we can collect this material at depots. And so that material would be collected at depots or potentially through another collection system that the Pro sets up. So it just provides more flexibility in the additional materials list. So again, I think what we're trying to acknowledge by potentially adding this is a material that is being collected by some municipalities already as part of that additional materials list. And so we wanted to make sure that we were not in a position with the program plan that we were reducing servicing for some residents in Colorado, so that we were keeping up the same level of recycling opportunities rather than potentially in this area decreasing them. Is that helpful?
Yes, perfect additional context. Thank you. And with all of that, I don't actually have any additional comments. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. Thanks, Pete. Let me just ask again if there are any outstanding questions or feedback from the board on the material recyclable list or the additional material list.
As we just wait a second for that, I will just mention, and sorry, I should keep doing this, Peter Hargreave, CAA, that I do have two colleagues on the phone. Yuri is on, who is our new executive director, as well as Alex Chan, that is helping on the producer dues and eco-modulation side. So if I say anything completely outrageous or wrong, they are here to correct me.
Great. Welcome, Alex and Yuri.
Perfect. So maybe if we move one more slide forward, I just wanted to provide an update on consultation. So as we were preparing for the consultation sessions coming up, we did look to pivot slightly from what we had proposed to you in previous meetings. So in previous meetings, we had talked about, focusing the consultation sessions by stakeholder group. And I think the concern we had with that was to some degree making sure that we were able to get through all of the content that we wanted to get through as part of those consultation sessions. And so we looked to pivot to move to a topic-based approach. So we'll focus on key consultation or key program plan topics. There will be 10 in total. And we will try to ensure that when we send out invites, which should be going out today to those meetings, to all stakeholder groups, that there is the ability for, or we identify areas or meetings that those stakeholders might be of more interest to than others. Any stakeholder is welcome to join any of the meetings that we have, so they will all be public meetings open to anybody that wishes to join. Again, the idea is that we are able to provide more in-depth presentations and discussions around those areas. It makes it easier. We'll have fact sheets, briefing notes that will go out ahead of time that can be more substantial for those meetings. And it also makes it a little easier for our team around making sure that we've got subject matter experts for each of those meetings that is able to answer questions. So rather than having them at 8 different meetings, we can focus them and make sure that they're there for those 10 scheduled meetings. If we move forward one more slide, this is the list of topics that will be covered in each of the sessions. And the timeline, I will note, it does say subject to change, and there has been one change. The dates for eco-modulation and increasing recycling rates has flipped. So those two dates have, oh, maybe they are correct. Yuri, correct me if I'm wrong. Are those correct in this slide? Maybe he's not.
Eco-modulation is last. You got it correct.
Yeah, it is correct. Okay, perfect. So this is the schedule for those meetings. We are doing those meetings virtually between 1 and 2 p.m. Mountain Time. There will be a briefing note that will go out to all of the attendees ahead of those sessions, and there will be a follow-up survey to solicit input afterwards. We will be addressing questions and feedback as part of those sessions, but we know that everyone might not necessarily have time at that session to provide them, may want to think about things, so we will provide those afterwards. We're looking at requesting participants to respond in 30 days to those surveys, just to make sure that we're getting the feedback, we can build it into the sessions or into the program plan in a timely manner. But obviously there will be lots of opportunities for feedback as part of the program plan, as part of these sessions, as part of the advisory board, and then finally when the department posts the materials and seeks public feedback from them. So again, that's the one alteration. We're expecting those emails to go out today to all targeted stakeholder groups. There will be a page on our website as well that will be specifically for the program plan. It will include all of the information about all of these sessions. We will post the presentations on the website and the briefing notes so that people can look at those afterwards if they missed the meetings and aren't able to attend. And the questionnaires will also be available for people if, again, they didn't have a chance to, but would like to provide comments as part of each of those sessions.
Okay, so as you're pausing here, Pete, let me just ask if any advisory board members have any questions or comments about the proposed consultation process. Okay, hearing none. Well, at this point, we're going to take a break, but we're going to keep moving through here. So we're making good time. We'll have more opportunity to keep going. So Brandon will come back to that break point at that time. So let's see. I'm going to now turn it over to Darla and Pete to provide an introduction to eco-modulation. An easy topic.
Yeah, so easy. Thank you, Scott. Darla Aarons, State of Colorado. And I'm going to give you a quick statutory background on the eco-modulation requirements that are described in our Producer Responsibility Act. So first, the Act says that by January 1st, 2026, and each year thereafter, the department shall develop an eco-modulation bonus schedule that is designed to reduce the producer responsibility dues of producers that meet certain benchmarks established by the department by rule. The department shall consult with the PRO and with the advisory board in developing the eco-modulation bonus schedule. And the Act then specifies that the PRO shall reduce the dues of producers in accordance with the eco-modulation bonus schedule developed by the department. Under the plan proposal requirements, the Act says that the proposal must establish a funding mechanism that includes eco-modulation factors that lower producer responsibility dues to incentivize high recycling and refill rates, designs for the reuse and refill of covered materials, high levels of post-consumer recycled content material use, innovations and practices to enhance the recyclability of commodity value, and to incentivize reductions in the amount of packaging materials used for products. Also, under the plan proposal funding mechanism requirements, the proposal must include eco-modulation factors that increase producer responsibility dues to discourage using covered materials that are not on the minimum recyclable list, designs and practices that disrupt the recycling of other materials, and designs and practices that increase the costs of recycling, reusing, or composting covered materials. And those are all the statutory requirements regarding eco-modulation, so really short and sweet. But as a reminder, we will be taking a deeper dive into eco-modulation at our July 25th technical work session. So for now, I'm going to turn it over to Pete to give you an introduction to Circular Action Alliance's approach to eco-modulation. Go ahead, Pete.
Perfect, thanks. Just one more slide forward. So just as I go through, the first couple of slides are maybe just a bit of a reminder when we talk about producer dues and how they set, and partially because there is some crossover when we talk about the initial base fees, and then we talk about eco-modulation on top of that. So Darla's talked a little bit about eco-modulation. The law obviously requires that dues must vary by the type of covered materials. They must be based on the net recycling service costs for each material in the state. We've got to make sure that we only use up to a maximum of 5% of the fees generated for administration of the program fees. We have to put in place eco-modulation adjustments to create incentives, and obviously Darla just went through some of those, and we'll talk about those as well in a few slides. And the total dues generated must fully cover the expected costs of the program. And that obviously includes different pieces. It includes the services themselves. It includes administration and program operation costs. It includes fees that we will pay back to CDPHE, and it will potentially recover, or it will cover reserves that will need to be in place to ensure that the program's adequately funded if there is issues within a year. I just want to make sure too, I note that the legislation in Colorado is quite clear that these are producer dues. In every other jurisdiction, for those producers that might be involved with us in Colorado or in California or Oregon, those are referred to as producer fees. So same thing, but again, it is a difference in the law here in Colorado. Next slide. So the results of the needs assessment do provide us with guidance on the amount of funding that we will be needing to have in place that producer dues need to cover for program operations and infrastructure investments. We are in the process right now of recruiting obligated producers and ensuring that they understand what they will need to report for their packaging supply to inform the dues that are in place. So as an update, we have registered now roughly about 1,300 producers in total right now. From a size perspective, over 250 companies that are what we would say are large producers that are supplying significant amounts of materials into the state, and we define large based on their revenues. So we feel pretty comfortable. Things are moving along quite nicely in getting producers registered and into the program. This will still be an ongoing push as we move into October to make sure that we've got them all of the producers registered. But again, I think we've seen quite a good progress over the last few months. We've talked about a little bit about how the due setting methodology is set up, and it is supported by guiding principles, and we are looking as much as possible to harmonize our approach across different states that we are implementing in at the same time, and making sure that that is as clear a methodology as possible. Next slide. I just thought I would include this timeline just to make sure as we go through, just so it's clear as to sort of the timelines as to what is happening when. So in the law currently right now, we are moving towards that deadline for registration that was in the rules of October 1st. There is a requirement for producers to be participating in the program by July 1st. We will likely be looking for producers to report their data in by August 31st of next year. And then we will be looking then potentially at assessing fees in January of 2026. At that time, again, it depends a little bit as to when the program plan is approved, as to when the date of the program, as to when it starts. But it gives you an idea as to, sort of when things will start to move forward. And then obviously there'll be reporting requirements in every year. There will also be as well when the dues will be announced. We want to make sure that producers understand for their own financial planning, that they understand what those dues are ahead of time. So that may get to some of your question, Chris, around making sure that producers are aware of what the dues might be. We obviously need the supply data ahead of time. So I would say to you, that first year time period, it's a bit crunched. Obviously, we would like a little bit more time with the supply data beforehand, but we're working with the timelines that we have. Next slide over. And please, Liz, I'm happy to answer questions as we go forward. So I will, maybe if we can pull back one slide and let Liz ask her question.
Thank you, Liz Chapman, Recycle Colorado. And thank you for this. It helps me to see things in a graphical way and see the timeline that we're working with. So I appreciate you going to the extra trouble of presenting the information in this way. One of the things that I'm noticing is it looks like the Producer Responsibility Organization will begin collecting dues in 2026. Does that mean that the reimbursement schedule will be late 2026, or will the reimbursement schedule happen? Will it coincide with the collection of dues? I'm curious about how the reimbursement schedule aligns with the dues schedule.
That's a good question, Liz. I guess it depends a little bit as to where we land on the methodology for how we will set the reimbursement dues. So it may be to some degree dependent on that, but the methodology will be set out in the program plan. There are different ways reimbursement might happen. Some of it could be contractual. Some of it could be, again, an open reimbursement methodology that anyone can potentially be compensated through.
Scott.
Thanks. Scott the Fife, Glass Packaging Institute. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Peter, thanks for the update. I want to make sure I didn't miss it. The 250 large, 1,300 total, how do you think, how is that on the scale of what you expect? Any ideas, or are we still?
Yeah, I think blunt answer is we're not sure yet. Because, Scott, there is differences in thresholds in each of the states. So the de minimis is set differently across states. The exemptions are slightly different by each state. I'm not sure we necessarily have a great idea as to the amount we're expecting. I think California has done a bit of a crude calculation based on, I think they took Canadian numbers of producers signed up, and they basically, I think they looked at using a per capita type of comparison. I don't think you can do that in the sense that I don't necessarily think that the amount of producers is based on the population count. It's a 1-to-1 type of ratio. So I think this is something we need to figure out. We're obviously pushing to sign up producers right across or between jurisdictions. There's definitely more that need to get signed up, but I think we're happy with the progress that's been made to date.
Yeah, I've always thought that maybe importers might lag, or wholesale distributors, that are in the medium size, might be lagging, but that's just a theory. So.
There is, I think there is Yeah, there is, I think, certainly, we are seeing it probably more in some of the other jurisdictions where there are some producers that appear to be holding off because they don't necessarily feel like it's clear to them that they are under the rules caught. And so some of that is about making sure that there's clear enough information from them, from the state, and then potentially then guidance provided by us to make sure it's clear for them as to whether they're caught or not.
Great, thank you, Scott. Any other questions for Pete at this point on the registration, the timeline, anything he's covered so far?
So Scott,
Okay.
I'll keep moving on, but I would just say one additional thing that I'll mention in addition to Liz's question. We obviously want to make sure that service providers know what the compensation is. We've got a very short window once the program plan is approved to get service providers signed up and providing information into CAA. So we're going to want to make sure that they understand sort of what reimbursement looks like as soon as possible, because as I said, that 6-month window is pretty tight. So I think we're going to want to make sure we're working that out well ahead of time. So I don't have a date for you right now, but certainly we are aware of that as we write this proposed program plan, we need to be thinking through implementation because there just really isn't a lot of runway.
Rick, you have a question.
Yeah, and I apologize. Rick Cater, Murph's Swordfish Consulting. I apologize for going way back, but I've been obsessing about the addition of polystyrene. I know I'm a weirdo, but I'm worried if we leave it wide open to EPS, expanded polystyrene. That includes meat trays, it includes clamshells, and that's way over the top, and nobody's recycling those. So can we be specific and identify it as block polystyrene so that we're at least focused on what we truly can recycle?
We can follow up on that, Rick, just to make sure it's clear as to what we're accepting. I need to double check. I didn't have the conversation with I think the local company is Foam Cycle, so I can follow up with the team as to sort of what the specifics are. There are some programs that are taking other types of polystyrene other than just block. And condensing that and using that. So I will follow up with the team though and check on that.
All right, thank you. We fought so hard and EcoCycle and others in training and teaching that they need to move away from polystyrene for those applications and transition to polypro or some others. So we've got them finally transitioning away from these things. And if we add it back to the list, are we not just promoting it again? So I'll stop at that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick. And as I said, I think the intention is really largely about trying to make sure that the same opportunities exist moving forward. And so I think that's what we're trying to, the suggested change was really meant to drive it, but we'll look at language around that. Okay, I'll keep moving forward. We've talked about the guiding principles already. I'm not going to spend any time on this slide because we've talked about all of these already. I just wanted it as a reference point for conversation that we might have today around how we're looking at eco-modulation and producer fees. The next slide. And again, we spoke about this slide at the technical session. Chris, you were enjoying, I think, the sun at that point, so it'll be new for you. But again, the first piece is, what are the system costs? What is the cost to operate the system? Then we look at a cost to manage index. So how do we look at assigning those system costs, allocating those system costs to the different types of materials that are being supplied into the marketplace. And I think as we talked about this, initial thinking is likely there'll be 70 plus 80 categories in total. We're just looking at refining that list. So we'll look at that, on the supply tons to allocate those system costs based on the tons that are being supplied into the marketplace. There are some additional costs that would be added and allocated to materials that would include things like education and outreach, reserves. If there are specific admin costs that we would need to add, those would get added. We're offsetting the material costs with revenues. So again, if material has high commodity prices and a large amount of or a high recycling rate, that would obviously significantly reduce the cost for that specific material. So that gives us net dues. We would then take those and divide that by the producer supply tons, and that gives us then a dues, which would be a cost per pound of material. The next step then would be applying an eco-modulation, a bonus and a malus or malus, and we'll walk through a little bit of that process around eco-modulation in the next few slides. So next slide. So I think we've had quite a few conversations, at least at a high level, around eco-modulation. It really refers to monetary adjustments to dues that reflect positive or negative environmental impacts associated with packaging attributions or choices that are being made around packaging. It's structured usually in most jurisdictions, again, based on incentives or disincentives, so bonuses or maluses that correspond to a policy objective or environmental objectives that are trying to be achieved. There is a basic eco-modulation. So, and again, I think this largely fits with the work that we have talked about as we look at how we are basing our base fees. So there's variation to account for the recyclability of the material, the ease of materials to be recycled, so to be sorted, processed, the value of those materials at end markets. And then there's a more multi-factor eco-modulation. So you're adjusting the dues and introducing them specific incentives and disincentives, and that fits with some of the criteria that Darla went through a few slides ago. So looking at things like recycled content and how those recycled content could be accounted for as part of potentially either a bonus or a malus type of an approach. The graphic at the bottom of the slide is really an attempt by me, so apologies if it's not the greatest thing on earth, but just to show you, you can have your base dues and then a malus applied to that, which increases the dues for that specific producer. There could be a potential situation where you have bonuses and maluses and the producer doesn't get either, or you could have the situation where a producer has a bonus, and so that green area would be the reduction in the cost that they would pay. So again, different approaches as to how, and you could have potentially some producers attracting maluses in some areas and bonuses in other areas. Next slide over.
From Rick.
Oh, yep. Sorry, Rick, go ahead.
Rick Hader, Swordfish Recycling, MERS. Just a quick clarification. So if you're looking at the slide before, you had identified that the fee, the base dues, are a factor of cost against revenue received for that particular stream or commodity. So let's use aluminum as an example. So do you foresee aluminum at 1,800 a ton exceeding the cost and the base fee being zero?
The base fee for aluminum being zero?
Correct.
I don't think that that has happened in any of the programs that I'm aware of. Alex, I don't know if you know the answer to that, but I think generally aluminum packaging tends to have lower rates, but I don't think I've ever seen them at zero.
No, I can jump in. In some of the Canadian programs, we have seen aluminum cans, aluminum UBC fee rates at negatives, so they actually get a credit back for those materials,
Okay.
and those are in particularly robust aluminum markets. In the years where the markets were really robust, so the producers could benefit from the really high values. So
Wow.
it does happen, but not always.
Oh, that's a good question. So would the MRF be responsible or the producer be responsible for providing you with the added value to reimburse the producer?
Yeah, so I think Pete, back to the some of the initial questions around the contracts with service providers, which you're working on. So I think it depends on those arrangements with the MERS processes and whether how much of the revenues that with the pros actually get back in the system.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it depends. I think it depends. I mean, like with municipal contracting, Rick, it depends to some degree on what that relationship looks like. So is one side have all the risk? Is it a shared risk model? And again, it may depend on that if it's a contractual relationship as to how that's worked out. So yep.
Great. Thank you, Rick, for that question.
And thanks, Alex, for correcting me. Darla's already talked about this already, so I won't spend any time on this. But again, there's 5 different areas potentially for bonus that we need to look at, and 3 areas for penalties. Next slide over. So I just wanted to provide just an overview in this next slide. So we've taken the US programs and tried to sort of provide a little bit of an idea as to what's being required in each of the states that are currently moving forward. So there is currently right now some consistency in some areas. So each of the states is asking for the pro to take into account the percentage of PCR content within each of those states. But there is also quite a bit of variation in what's included. So you have 2 states that are dealing with ensuring that there are that recycling rates, and Colorado also talks about refill rates are taken into account. You have 2 states that have specifics on taking into account toxicity. You have 2 states that are taking into account labeling. So there is a fair amount of difference between these states. So as we try to look to move towards trying to provide more of a standardized approach, there is some issues as we as a pro look to implement and to ensure producers understand what their requirements are. So if we move one more slide forward, this just provides just a quick explanation as to sort of where that commonality exists between different states. Again, you can probably argue to some extent there may be a little bit more commonality. There's some language that's a bit different between states, but this is, really where the key commonality exists for the various states. So everybody's taking this a little bit differently around what the pro needs to consider as part of eco-modulation. So there's certainly some things that are included in other states that are unique. Oregon, who I think may be presenting at the next meeting, includes life cycle analysis requirements. That is not required in any of the other states. So again, there is some difference in what's being proposed. That does create some challenges for us as we look towards trying to make sure that the approach is somewhat harmonized and producers know what is actually being asked for as part of the packaging that they produce. Next slide. So I just want to talk at a high level about considerations. And so as we start to look at how we provide and how we look at eco-modulation for the different categories, one of the first things we looked at was to say, how do the base producer dues account for criteria that's already in place? So I'll walk through these. And again, there's a question of degree. What degree do the producer dues currently take this into place? So I think there's an interpretation question where people might have different interpretations as to the degree that they take into account. But when we look at reductions in the amount of packaging used for products, the dues that we have, the methodology, that base methodology we talked about, already does take that into some account. So it is based on the amount of materials that are supplied into the marketplace. So if a producer reduced the amount of materials that they were using for their product, that would be reflected in their dues because they would be supplying less material into the marketplace. Innovations and practices to enhance the recyclability or the commodity value of covered materials. You could probably argue this either way. I have left it as an X for now, but to some degree, the commodity value is addressed in the base fees. If your packaging is made of a commodity that is of higher value, that is taken into account because the revenues associated with that are applied and deducted, in a sense, reduces your costs for your material. High levels of PCR use are not taken into account in any way as part of the base fees. Designs for the reuse and refill of covered materials is taken into account. We do not charge, or we will not be charging any fees. I do not foresee as part of the program, and that's simply because reuse and refill products are not captured under the legislation. It is only products that are disposable that are captured. High recycling rates and refill rates are taken into account. If it's a refill product, obviously it's not going to be reported, and so it wouldn't be built into the producer dues. The recycling rates are taken into account to a degree because if you have a high recycling rate and your materials are of high value, that revenue will be reflected in your producer dues by lowering that due. Designs and practices that increase the cost of recycling, reuse, or composting of covered materials is captured because that piece is obviously that reflects the cost to manage that material in the system. So that is covered to some extent. Materials, designs and practices that disrupt the recycling of other materials, that would be taken because that's a cost to manage issue. And producers using covered materials that are not on the minimum recyclables list, that is required for us to account for as we move forward. So that is taken into account in the base fees. So there is, to some degree, eco-modulation that already happens through that base fee. And the question, I guess, is to what degree does it take it into account? And then what additionally needs to be added as we look to eco-modulate on top of that? Next slide over. So I think there is some questions consideration-wise. What's the criteria that should have the largest or the smallest and largest impacts? Are there areas, are there factors that we're looking to increase or to create the greatest impact for? Are there ones that are more secondary type of options? We talk about it as we look at producers across the spectrum right now. There certainly are commitments that are being made by a number of producers. So is there ways to try to make sure the way that we're aligning it meets with what producers are trying to do in the marketplace? Is there fairness in the incentives or the eco-modulation that is being put forward? And so the sort of table underneath is really meant to sort of talk about some of those considerations. So reductions in the amount of packaging materials used for products. How do we ensure certain packaging types aren't unduly advantaged? Certainly one example that comes up quite often is glass. Glass tends to be quite heavy. I can easily reduce my packaging by potentially moving from a glass bottle potentially to flexible film that may not be as recyclable. So there's a question of how do we make sure that we're not unduly influencing certain types of packaging as part of the process. There may also be certain types of packaging where there really aren't a lot of opportunities to reduce the amount of packaging materials used for that type of packaging. So if you take a pressurized cylinder, there are very clear requirements around the thickness of that type of packaging to ensure that it's safe for the public. So there really isn't necessarily in a design like that a lot of opportunity to reduce the packaging associated with that. Similar types of things will exist. I think we had somebody speak the other day about the thickness of glass in a bottle. If it's carbonated, there are certain limitations that producers may have in certain types of packaging. Innovations and practices to enhance the recyclability or commodity value of covered materials. Again, there's a question, I think, of how do we properly measure that? How do we look at, how do we assess that for different types of packaging that are out there and allocate a bonus or a bonus associated with that? For high levels of PCR material use, what may be the timelines needed to adjust, to allow companies to properly report and to ensure fairness? So I think it was our last technical meeting, we had a company that was selling honey in glass jars. They were not currently using recycled content in that glass jar. It's a smaller company. I think we just want to make sure we're not unduly disadvantaging smaller companies that may not have the resources ahead of time to think about how to adjust their packaging. So we don't want to create a potential opportunity where folks didn't know about changes they needed to make beforehand and are unduly disadvantaged because of that. So one consideration I think that we're looking for. There are also certain types of packaging potentially that may also we don't want to disadvantage. There are certain types of packaging, obviously, that may not be able to use the same levels of recycled content as a result. And I'll pause for a second because I see Scott's hand is up. And I've maybe used glass too many times in the last few weeks.
If you say it Scott to 5 glass packaging, if you say the word glass 3 times, I'm like Beetlejuice. I come off you. I have to comment. No, to keep it outside the specific material conversation, perhaps recommend or ask if CAA might be convening discussions amongst the brands, the producers that use the material with the material groups to discuss ways and things that, get common agreement on what's going on within that material group. I certainly think that there's things that you can do even within different material groups. I remember the honey, like those bottles are being imported. They're not US made. Yep. They're made in China. And the smaller companies often have to rely on global wholesale market packaging companies. That's where I think there's not a lot of take up yet in that world about what the EPR laws mean for individual producers who use global wholesalers who may not be tuned in to what's going on in Colorado or Oregon or Maine or whatever. And they may be at a little bit of a disadvantage in that regard. But to bring it back to the larger point, for all materials, perhaps a conversation, about what's the realm of the possible, and what's a good industry standard, if you will, for each of the material groups.
Thanks, Scott. I think that's helpful. I mean, I think we're also concerned too about certain companies may be asking for this. Maybe some of the larger companies are asking for this type of thing, and there may be smaller companies that haven't even thought about asking for this. So if we are setting these bonuses, particularly around, let's say, PCR in year one, are we potentially, because again, the costs of the system need to be covered. So if you're providing bonuses to somebody or malices to somebody, the costs need to be made up somewhere in the system. And so I think we're just a little bit cautious around that factor, around disadvantaging people before they've had time to adjust.
Yep.
Leave that point with me. I think that discussion seems like a reasonable thing for us to consider. So let me take that back to the team as something to work through, and we will follow up on that side. Although if the meeting entails me and you in it, it needs to be a public meeting, so we'll need to work out that as well. So yeah. Okay, designs for reuse and refill of covered materials. There is questions around how do we make sure we're measuring, and how do we measure fairly when it comes to reuse, refill of covered materials. So how are we counting that reuse and refill? How do we make sure we're verifying what's happening? I think there's lots of questions potentially around reuse and refill. For designs and practices, so if we move to the malices, designs and practices that increase the costs of recycling, reuse, or composting of covered materials, how do we fairly measure that? How do we assess one example versus another? Which one are we providing with a malice? So, what types of characteristics are we targeting, and what should be the sort of timeline to address those concerns? And again, the same thing fits for designs and practices that disrupt the recycling of other materials.
So we have a question here from Clinton. Yeah.
Yeah, Clinton Sander, A1 Organics. Can you hear me okay, Scott?
Yes, could be a little louder, but it's
okay. I'll just yell, scream in my office. People love
There you
it. Peter, when you just asked that, was that a question? How does one fairly measure composting covered materials?
I think we're trying to say, how do we fairly measure these types of things when we look into the marketplace?
Sure. Well, one thing that's jumping out of my mind as we're going through this is like a lot of this is associated with collection, and then also the recyclability of the market available for, like, say, aluminum versus glass versus plastic. But with compostables, you're dealing with processing of the material at a commercial composting facility.
Yep.
And different types of materials that are created or used to create compostables, even though they're certified potentially, or they should be.
Yep.
We'll process differently. We'll take longer time. We'll take more resources, potentially less resources, types of organics to process them. And also the technologies used, even potentially at one facility, could be 3 different technologies for processing of those materials or those compostables. So those are some of the measurements you need to consider within compostables is field disintegration testing, type of material they're made from, how well and how quickly does it compost, how effectively does it compost, those kind of considerations outside of the contamination potential. That makes sense?
It does. If I can just further, though, my understanding with compostable materials is they may act differently in different types of facilities. based on the
different
way that system's
technologies.
set up and the technology. So if, you know, it breaks down, if one product breaks down differently in one facility versus another, how do you set disincentives if it's acting differently in one facility versus another?
If it doesn't bring.
And
Hmm.
I'm asking these questions more just because I think as we move into this topic, these are sort of questions that I think we're asking ourselves. You know, and we don't necessarily have a full deck of information, right? We don't necessarily have full data. We don't have supply data yet from producers. So these are questions that come to mind as we're moving our way forward. And certainly, you know, the questions around you know, ensuring businesses have time to some degree, if we think they should have time to react, or we may say, well, everyone should have addressed this before. That's a decision that needs to be made. But again, I think we're just trying to figure out how do we take into consideration different players within the system.
Right. I'll think about that question. I gotta go back and look at that again. That's a challenging question to answer, especially when you, like for us, potentially residual management is a whole nother factor in this challenge of if you're accepting compostables and there's a level of contamination coming with them. Once you've processed them and you have leftover residuals, then you have to landfill that. But that would fit underneath disruptive recycling of other materials. So that affects the organics, which should be on priority number one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll stop there, but like I'll put some thought into that. But like I look forward to the compostable conversation because there's a lot of other factors that don't, it relates differently on how they're being processed in the finish. But
Yeah.
okay.
I think it's maybe I'm stating the obvious here, but you know, I think Pete and company are looking for those measures. You know, they have a lot of questions as well. You're raising, you know, similar or different ones here, coming to an effective measure that they can use that is fair across facilities seems to be the, you know, the key. So that's what we're here to do. These are, I guess, questions for all of you, but they're asking those same questions internally as well.
Great.
Perfect. Next slide. So just moving into other considerations. You know, first, how easy is it for the criteria to be reported and the potential environmental impacts measured? So anything that we put in place around bonuses and maluses, we need to make sure that we can verify what's actually happening. The ability to report does get into potentially some differences that may be in place when we talk about larger and smaller producers. Some of the larger producers may have whole departments that can manage this. Some of the smaller producers may have somebody that's wearing multiple hats. And so how do we make sure that we've got that information? There certainly is as well abilities for certain players to ask for certain amounts of information and get it, and maybe smaller ones that may not have the same ability to do that. You know, and I think we're certainly, yeah, what data is available currently right now, and what might be able to push for that we might be able to get at a later date. Environmental impacts upstream and downstream. Producers don't necessarily have full control over all upstream and downstream. So I think certainly we're looking at how do we look at what things that they have in reach to be able to address, and maybe those might be some of the areas we may want to focus on first. But ensuring that we understand that side of things. So I often use the example of a regular bottle. That bottle has lots of different components to it, and that bottle may be produced by multiple different people. So there's the primary package, the bottle itself, there's the cap, there's the label, There's all of those pieces that go into it, all of which might have different inputs from different manufacturers that are going into it. And so those things need to be taken into consideration if you're sending signals to all of those manufacturers that are helping to produce that one bottle. Next slide. So as we move forward, I think we're looking at several cautions as we move forward. So generally, when we look at eco-modulation, the countries that it has been introduced in, it's been introduced into mature programs. So they already have established base fee rates in place. They have extensive reporting data that's in place. In the US, as we move forward in Colorado, California, and Oregon, we don't have any, we're starting fresh. So there is a difference, I think, in the starting point as we establish this eco fee modulation. And I think as we look at it, we're just looking to make sure that we're not causing potential issues that may create imbalance of fairness in the marketplace, or that may create unintended consequences as we move forward. So we do have limited data as well, and some producers may be new to this. So we know as part of registration, as we move out to talk to different producers, this is new for them. They do not know exactly what needs to be reported. And so there is an education session just to help them on how do they report their supply data into Colorado. And then there's the added potential additional information we're going to be looking for them from them for eco-modulation. So information about recycled content, information about reuse and refill that they may not be currently reporting, and may not have the systems in place naturally to report that data. Again, we talked about producer readiness already. We want to make sure we're not creating any equity issues. And again, I think as we look at this, we're trying to look at trying to create some harmonization between the states, but knowing that there are different requirements, so that may not be able, but obviously we want to try to send market signals that are similar across the various states. And the next slide is questions, but maybe I'll just double check on Alex and Yuri. Is there anything I've missed that or misspoken on?
I've got nothing to add. Thank you.
No, that was great. Thanks, Pete. Yeah, I think the precautions you highlighted are really important to understand, because as we can see, the eco-modulation criteria in the statute, it is quite complicated. We need to be able to really interpret what each of them mean, and if the base fees already accounts for some of these. And then if we do roll out eco-modulation, we need to ensure that, as you say, all producers in the program have equal eligibility to these incentives. And also, what are the data requirements to ensure that the disincentives are also enforceable in year one. So a lot of considerations for sure. Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Alex. So Scott, we left a few questions. We can go by them one by one, or we can be selective or allow just the group to sort of weigh in. But I think there was a few areas we were looking for some immediate feedback.
Right. So let me just pause here one moment, because we're doing great, folks. When we set these meetings up, you all said 2 hours you wanted them, but then we made them to 3. And if we can leave early, that's great. We may be able to leave early here, but we do have a public comment, so I want to check in particularly with Darla here at this point. Do we want to take a break and then let people sign up with Brandon through that process, or just for people that want to make a public comment to put their name into the chat, and then after we do these questions, then we'll go to the public comment? How would you like to do it?
Well, our typical process is to have folks sign up with their name and organization when we go to break, and we are at that time. to take a break. So if everybody is good with that, we'll take a break, have folks sign up with their name and organization in the chat. And then at the end of our meeting, we'll take public comments. But it's really up to the board. If you just want to keep pushing through and not take the break, we can do that too. So whatever the board wants.
Board, do I hear a motion for one or the other?
I would motion Clinton San Diego Organics to push on through.
Push on
I need-
through.
Yeah, I need to get off at 3 o'clock. So, yeah.
All right.
For selfish
Anyone-
reasons only.
All right.
Push on
Any objections to that?
I just checked the soccer score, so I'm good. to go.
You're good. All right. Well, if people need to take a bio break or whatever it is, obviously, feel free to do that. All right. So what we're going to do here is those that would like to make a public comment, like Chris Boucher just did, put your name and affiliation in the box. As Darla mentioned here, we do not take questions through the chat. So Dustin, if you would like to ask that question when the time comes, just put your name and affiliation into the same box here. And with that, we're going to take these questions. And Pete, I will leave it up to you if you want to do one at a time, question, response, or go through all four and then open it up.
I'm happy to just sort of open it up to the group to sort of, if people want to weigh in different areas. I think we're currently right now looking to get feedback, in a number of different areas. How can we make sure that we are developing eco-modulation that will be equitable and accessible to all producers? Should we look in any way at factors that can be transitioned over time to allow producers to make adjustments? There's different ways we could potentially do that. We could look at, more kind of a scheduled transition. We could look at, there's certain factors that are taken into account already through the base structure, and we could then ramp up other factors that we add in on top of that. Are there other factors that we could or that we should consider? So certainly, as mentioned, there are other requirements that were included in Oregon, that were included in California. So is there any rational, or is there any rationale for us to look at some of those others? And then I guess the top one, which I should have mentioned at the outset, was, are there criteria we think we should weight more heavily than others when we look at establishing those factors?
Okay, so we've got 4 questions here. You can take it in whatever order you would like. So anyone want to be the first one with a question or comment? Rick, and then Scott.
Rick Hader, Swordfish Consulting, Murphs. On the which criteria should have the smallest and largest impacts, I think the original criteria that was used for justification for being on one of the lists, the minimum recyclable list, the additional recyclable list, at a minimum should be used. And then in those groupings, I would say, obviously in the how the item impacts recyclability of other materials and flow and whatnot should be one of the largest review areas as it relates to, how you're determining fee structure, because obviously the easier the item is to process, the less the fee should be, or thereabouts. As it relates to how can we make the eco-modulation equitable and accessible to all, I think the producers will probably drive that more than anything else. They'll give you those recommendations. On the other, should eco-modulation factors be transitioned over time? I don't know. I want to give those that have already put in the time and the effort to make changes some kind of benefit up front. So why wouldn't I want to benefit those people that are taking initiative? And then are there eco-modulation factors that should be considered? Why or why not? Obviously, the factors that you identified in the criteria to include the items on the list. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Pete, any comments on that?
No, I think that's helpful. I mean, are there attributes, Rick, that you would see on the recyclability side that would be? I think you talked about that. Products that are packaging that's impacting recyclability. Are there certain attributes you would look to first around?
Well, from a process, obviously the collector is going to be speaking to collections and how it fits in the container and how easily it's dumped. On the MRF side, it's going to be yieldability. How quickly can I get it out of my stream, and how clean can I make it so that I'm making a good quality product? So I think it all drills down to how easily is it recycled or received and yielded. That's why flex film was such a problem for us. It's a great example of it's going to migrate throughout the plant, throughout products, and it's problematic throughout the system. So does that answer your question, sort of, kind of?
It does, yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any of these questions? Scott, oh yes, you had your hand up before.
Yep, Scott the Five Glass Packaging. Along the lines of equitable and accessible and transition, Peter, I think it's important to remember Colorado's one of the first states that's going. This is new. There are potentially some factors that may be new to everybody thinking about these things as they're coming forward with these things. And so, some ability to transition over a period of time, or at least give certain industries or certain material groups, a chance to cure something that is particularly harmful or difficult, might be helpful, kind of in a stewardship role, right? And flexibility, not just here it is, deal with it, but some additional back and forth and effort to see if all the ideas are taken into consideration about how to handle different things in a manner that's more efficient.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Any other comments, feedback, any of these questions? Caroline.
Caroline Mitchell, City of Fort Collins. We'll see if my video behaves long enough here for a few minutes. I guess I'm thinking about how a lot of these factors really vary depending on the type of packaging that you're thinking about. And, as we think about sort of the, like environmental impacts of things, are we looking from a life cycle perspective? Are we looking from a recyclability perspective? It seems like it's something where there's just so many details in here that it sort of behooves us, I think, to kind of talk through some more specific examples and more specific materials. I guess I'm thinking about in the, reduction of the amount of packaging and how certain types of packaging you can only reduce to a certain amount. And then would that product actually be better suited to a different type of packaging altogether, which may itself not be recyclable? And which of those we're prioritizing more? So I don't know that this is actually an answer, but I guess I'm finding it hard to have sort of broad overarching perspectives on a lot of these because it seems that they really vary a lot depending on specific circumstances and specific materials. And I don't know if it's worth us sort of talking through any, particular examples to kind of tease through them in a different level. Thinking out loud for a little bit right now, just to help lead the conversation.
And Carolyn, I think that's maybe what we can try to do for the next technical meeting is look at maybe some examples potentially of material types. I think we've tried to provide some examples where we may have some concerns with how do we set up equity within the system. I take the point, Scott's point of benefiting or the ability, or sorry, Rick's comments about benefiting companies that have done something progressively first. My only concern is there may be companies that it might be done something progressively first, but may not have the documentation that we may need to verify that that's actually been done. So, yeah, again, I just because people don't know what the rules are yet. Chris?
Can I ask a question before Chris, you ask yours here? Caroline, in terms of your interest in specific examples, are you looking for something like, taking like just examples that may be hypothetical about a base fee and, adding a certain cost based upon the material, but then giving some deduction or, adding something? Are you looking for that kind of example to kind of work it through as to what it may look like in the calculation? Or are you looking for something else?
Yeah, I guess Caroline Mitchell, City of Fort Collins. I think the process of the base fee and sort of adding or detracting from that seems fairly straightforward to me. But in thinking through this matrix and trying to think through these questions, I guess I was imagining that for each of these there may be, sort of its own matrix created similar to how the methodology to make the minimum recyclables list of what factors are sort of underneath each of these topics and how much do they how much are we weighing into them. And I guess maybe I should pause and check that assumption. Is that part of the process that you would see for getting to the next level of process and understanding in the eco-modulation, Peter? That you would be creating sort of specific criteria and maybe weighting how those might be considered to roll up into that factor.
So by that you're meaning recycled content. So if you're above the recycled content, we would provide you with a 5% deduction, that type of thing. Is that what you mean?
Sure, I guess. Sorry, not necessarily adding very clearly into the conversation here. So for instance, in like innovations and practices to enhance the recyclability of or commodity value of materials, it seems like there are a number of different factors that could go into that. Have you made a design around this? It seems like there are a number of different elements that could be considered under that. And I guess I was assuming for those that are less cut and dry, that there would be sort of additional factors created to help determine where you are in the process of, sorry, I might just pause and let us continue in the conversation elsewhere and work on more clearly formulating.
And I think maybe, Alex, I don't know if I saw your hand go up, but I don't know
Yeah.
if you've got something to add on that side.
Yeah, maybe I can help add some color to the process. Alex Chan, CA. So we are looking to do broader consultations on this with founding members and producers to get their take on what's the best and most practical way to roll out eco-modulation in all the states. And to your point, Caroline, these rules here, there's a lot of unpacking to do to really define what they mean and what's measurable, and how much weighting we put towards these. So I think, and then as you were mentioning about being material specific, if we look at the number 3, the PCR content as a criteria, we would not want to compare a producer in OCC versus a producer in plastics, as an example, right? So for that particular criteria, we would have to be sure that we're only comparing producers within the same material category to make that fair, in order to apply the incentive, right? So again, there's a lot of business rules we need to develop internally, and come back to the group to propose to be aligned with all these criteria. And that's going to be a lot of work to be done for the first year of the plan.
Great. Thank you, Alex. That's very helpful. I don't know who was next, if it was Clinton or Chris on there. But Chris, why don't you go here? Clinton's probably had a couple of questions. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, sounds good. I heard Rick's comments, and I think I'll just go along with Caroline, and I'm thinking out loud here. Chris Howes, representing the Colorado Retail Council. And, as we advise this board on behalf of retailers who are producers under the law, so think an aluminum soup can with the word Safeway on it, or a television set that's being delivered to you with the word Best Buy. I'm just thinking about, maybe the last 30 years at the state capitol, where some elected officials pick winners and losers, or big versus small. So I'm looking at the second bullet point here regarding equitable and the word accessible. We want that universe to be as large as possible. We expect all producers, as defined in the law, to comply with the law. And I understand there's a number of exceptions in that law with regard to industries that are not going to be affected whatsoever. But with regard to retailers who are producers, I would encourage the PRO and the state to simply say, look, if you're covered, you're covered. And so equity to me means everybody gets to pay in, and everybody gets the same treatment. And hopefully we'll all get, better packaging and better materials as the years go by. But I just want to make sure that we're not playing a game of, well, the big guys can handle it because they're big, and small guys don't get to, small guys get delays and they don't need to comply. I just want to get that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Clinton, and then Alex again. Go ahead, Clinton.
Okay, Alex, Clinton Sander, A1 Organics. Alex, would you like to go first? Did you have a thought?
I think it's his previous hand up, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
I'm going to follow on as the third person that's kind of just thinking out loud here for a minute. But this, I would tell you a quick story, and then this kind of gets to equitable, and this also gets to eco-modulation factors that potentially could be something thinking outside the box. And like a good example, and this is from the A1 organic side of the world, when we reduced our stream and only allowed a 3-gallon certified compostable bag in the stream of organics recycling, that did cause an equitable challenge for the older population sourcing those bags and trying to find those bags when they were accustomed to using a paper bag from a grocery store, which was a very easy, accessible, usable product that could be used for collecting organics and sent to an organics processor. Great scenario. So like that leads me to the second part of this, is there an opportunity within eco-modulation, or thinking about a packaging that's being created to be put in the stream that can go to multiple recyclable options and potentially used as a carrying device for other recyclables, food, but they're being used on the front end for a different purpose, to be used for a container to transport compostable items to compost manufacturer. a produce bag, for example, green produce bags. Imagine if they were all compostable. No one needed to get a bag because sorry, EcoSafe or any other any other bag manufacturer out there, but they could then have the option to source a bag to use for transporting organics. I'm not saying A1 wants that. I'm not saying anything like that. Contamination, if we can get that off the table, but are there opportunities to incentivize that style of multi-use prior to actually getting to the recycling point in the stream? Does that make sense, Peter?
Yeah, it does. It's just a question of for the pro and to implement it, how easy is that to measure? And are there potential unintended consequences that come with it?
Yeah, it was one of the, for us, when we reduced the stream, it was an unintended consequence upstream
Yeah.
that we didn't want to happen, but it was necessary at the time. So, but I just think it was a very creative, responsible way to manage a stream with multiple items in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Clint, as we move forward, we're open to suggestions on this where we might be able to consider different things. It's just a question of what's the information we're going to need from the producer to put it in place, and how easy is that to verify what's actually happening. So,
But I think gets back to what Carolyn was kind of talking, Clinton Sander, A1 Organics. She was kind of talking about like the life cycle and reduction, and I support that as well. Like really reducing first and thinking about the life cycle and making sure we're very beneficial with our choices of packaging. And that's where options like that could really reduce the impact. I'll stop. Get off my soapbox.
Okay. Any other questions at this point before we go to public comment? Hearing none. Pete, is there anything you want to do to close this up before we go to public comment?
yeah, I think there's, so we have another technical session. We're going to have some additional speakers come to that session. I think additional feedback, if there is additional feedback, this is a big topic. There's lots of angles to this one. It's a pretty meaty one. So, certainly I think, if there's additional feedback from you or there's areas specifically that would be helpful for us to cover in that next meeting, that would be helpful for us to get a nudge on, and we can try to accommodate that as well for the next technical session. Sorry, Liz.
Liz? Take yourself off mute. Oh, she froze. There you go.
Hello, Liz Chapman, Recycle Colorado. I seem to also be having some internet issues today. My apologies. My question is related to the bottom question here, Peter. It says, are there other eco-modulation factors that should be considered? And one of my questions back is, are the eco-modulation factors that are slated to be considered, are they specific to Colorado? So what I saw in your previous slides is there are a number of materials that are considered highly recyclable based on national accessibility to recycling. Is there going to be a tweaking of that eco-modulation for Colorado specifically? And what comes to mind is we have in-state processing for glass, we have out-of-state processing for OCC. It strikes me that that should be part of what is factored in, is how much of that recycling capacity is within the state should be a factor that influences the eco-modulation as well as those other things that you listed.
I will take that back and think about that with the team. I partially wonder whether we may run up against trade issues if we were doing that. If we were providing an advantage to, and plus, you know, there is requirements for us to foster market development within the state, generally as part of the program plan. But we could take that back to think about.
Great. Caroline.
Caroline Mitchell, City of Fort Collins. Process wise, I assume from this question, from question number 4, that the bill language allows the eco-modulation to be modified, and to sort of add additional considerations in. And if so, you know, it seems that the labeling was considered in Maine and California, and is there any value in adding that into the list if that's, you know, if that's allowed and if that's one of our questions here?
I think we're open in the program plan to propose additional eco-modulation factors. Labeling is included in some other jurisdictions. There is some questions as to how you evaluate it. A lot of materials will say recyclable where applicable, and that yeah. And I see that I may be getting myself in trouble by interpreting the law. Becca's hand up, so I
Here
will
comes the
wait to be corrected.
The department lawyer here is coming on. All right. Becca.
Not getting in trouble. This is Becca Fisher with the Colorado Attorney General's Office, a legal counsel for the department. Yes, the statute does allow for consideration of other factors. It says the word includes and lists the number of factors, but that does generally mean in terms of legal interpretation that there other factors could be considered. So no, not in hot water this time, Pete.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll
Thanks,
consider
Becca.
the win for the day.
Rick.
Well,
oh, Caroline, sorry. Did you want to follow up on that some more?
I just wanted to add the comment that we do already have the I believe it's called the Truth in Labeling legislation in Colorado for compostable products. So there's at least you know, a structure for some of the materials that already exists in Colorado.
Great, thank you. Rick.
Yeah, Rick Hader, Swordfish Consulting, MERS. So Peter, maybe I've missed something, but it's hard for me to address for because I haven't seen the matrix that is broken out by commodity or by package type that has even begun to carve out what the considerations are or what the criteria are. Have you put something together already and shared that with us?
So Rick, I think if we go back a few slides, there is criteria within the legislation that requires us to put in factors that deal with recycled content, that deals with recycling and refill rates. So those are all spelled out in the legislation that we have to comply with and add eco-modulation factors for. This question is simply saying, is there anything else that we should be considering as we move forward, either on the bonus or the malus side? So that matrix, I think, is really that list that we provided that had 5 bonuses and 3 maluses.
Okay, so then the matrix that we use to identify what items were going to be accepted on the lists, all the criteria in that should, in my opinion, be included as the first step of eco-modulation, because it broke out all of the requirements to be included on a list and it ranked them to some degree. And then you could get into each of those categories, like I said earlier, how a commodity or a product or a package flows through the plant and how disruptive it is. And then you rank each of those items that we discussed as being problematic in that category. So I mean, I think I would need to see something like that in a really nice, robust matrix that then showed me the methodology of how you ranked each of these commodities or packages, and then how we backed into eco-modulation. Does that make sense, Peter?
It makes sense to a degree, Rick. I guess I'm just trying to understand. So, I mean, some of the things we've talked about are yield rates. And so if you're applying because how easy is the material to sort in the facility, right?
Right.
So some of what may happen in Colorado, as part of the program plan development or as part of the proposed program plan may be investments in MRFs that increase yield rates for materials by including additional infrastructure to sort that material. So I guess I'm asking, then you're potentially, I guess I'm just trying to understand, are you penalizing certain material sets that where the improvements can be made on the infrastructure side?
Well, I'm penalizing, or I'm giving someone an advantage for collectability, the first area. I'm penalizing or giving them credit for sortability. I'm penalizing or giving them credit for yieldability. I mean, markets.
Yep.
I'm penalizing them. I mean, each one of those should be easily broken out into groupings and then scored, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to some degree, I guess the case is that is happening right now because the cost to the system is already being accounted for in the base fee. It's just a question, I guess, of what is the suggestion for multiplying that, I guess, on each category if you were looking to do that?
Well, I thought you had mentioned earlier that there weren't two categories in our technical meeting, that the eco-modulation was actually baked into the fee. So am I not right in thinking that? So now there is a base fee like you showed in the matrix or the org.
Yep.
And then there's this separate fee that we're calling eco-modulation. So that's what we're saying.
Correct. Yeah, so the base fee does eco-modulate as mentioned to some extent. So it does take into account revenues from materials. It does take into account how the cost to sort the material. If you aren't recovering much material, but you're putting a lot into a facility, we're taking that into account because that's an additional cost that's coming out as residue. So those types of things get taken into account to some degree in the base fee. There's a question to say, do we think that's enough? And we may want to add additional modulation after that. But yeah, it does take into account all of that to some degree already.
Okay, so like I would assume people packaging that uses multi-material in that one container would be disadvantaged. And we're trying to encourage them to go to a single material packaging, those kind of things. Is that in the fee discussion, or is that in this eco-modulation discussion?
Sorry, Alex, I think yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. Yeah, that's likely in the base fee discussion.
Huh.
So I think to more easily delineate this is that the base fee will reflect the material differences for the whole material category. So if you have a highly recyclable material, generally that material will have a lower fee than a hard to recycle material. But then when you look at eco-modulation, that's talking more about specific producer actions on their packaging that would qualify them for a particular incentive. So I think that we could make that clearer in that the base fee is around the fees associated with a material category. Eco-modulation is dealing with incentives or disincentives put on producers who do something with their packaging.
And just if I add just a tiny bit more clarification as we talk about this, because I just want to ensure that we haven't finalized anything. So as we talk about the base fee, it's the proposed approach to the base fee. So just to add clarity around that. So when we talk about these pieces, these are just proposals that we're talking about. So there's abilities for us to change how we're approaching that base fee, as well as when we talk about the eco-modulation. Sorry, I just wanted to be clear on that because I don't want to talk about it as absolute because it isn't.
Understood. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Rick. And just reminder that we will be delving into this some more in our technical meeting. So this is really the warm up.
Yeah, and I
we'll,
think
get into it further.
I think that's a really good point, Scott. So we can, as I said, there's stuff that I think is coming out here where we can provide maybe a bit more clarity when we're talking about the two different functions that in my head, often as I put these presentations, things make sense in my head, and as we present them, sometimes we need to add more clarity. So we'll take that back, Rick, and make sure to add a bit more clarity around that, around the two sets of proposals.
So, Becca.
Becca Fisher with the Colorado Attorney General's Office. I just wanted to pop in and clarify that, the Attorney General's Office and the department do consider the base fees section and the eco-modulation section separate. So there's certain factors. I think there's 3 factors for base fees. In that, that does not include the including language that I mentioned earlier, which is solely applicable to the eco-modulation factor. So the way I read it is the legislature gave the PRO less discretion when setting the base fees, but a little bit more discretion when setting the eco-modulation adjustments to those fees, if that makes sense. So I just want to clarify my previous comment.
Thank you. That was a great clarification. Okay. So we at the time, I know we have 4 or maybe 5 public comments here, so I want to make sure we leave time for that. So just asking one last time, any questions, comments? Okay, so let's move to the public comment. Brandon, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. So we're now at the public comment period of the meeting. We will call on members of the public in the order in which their requests were received. Now, since we have limited time, we're only going to allow 2 minutes for each comment, and we encourage commenters to focus on the topics discussed during this meeting. Now, please note that the public comment period is not a time to ask questions, but rather to provide your feedback. If you have questions, please email them to eprcomments@state.co.us. I'll put that in the chat, and we will begin with our first commenter, Chris Pichet. Chris, if you wouldn't mind unmuting, say your affiliation, and provide your 2-minute feedback.
Right, I'm Chris Pichet from RPM Eco. We are a service provider, recycling of fertilizer containers and empty automotive containers. Colorado generates around 1,000 tons of those containers per year going to the landfill. So my opening comments was on the CDPHE calling for service provider. And I want to comment on that and be great to have like the timeline of the collection. So I kind of missing some information there. And I think Peter could kind of highlight it in the debut of the program, starting program in 2026. But again, I don't see the collection dates, which would be very interesting for kind of business that we run. And again, also in the same topic, you mentioned something about a new association coming in for EPP. I didn't quite get the name of the abbreviation, so if you could put it in the chat, that'd be appreciated. And Peter, you mentioned a target stakeholder meeting. Is it linked to the calling of the service providers? Does that mean that if we put our name as a potential service provider, we're going to be invited to those stakeholder meeting, which could make sense? And I'd be happy to participate as well. And regarding the PCR questions and everything, I find it very interesting, and I'm going to wait for the next meeting, obviously. But for all sectors, like having like the same feedstock for the HDPE resin makes sense. As you imagine, you could get maybe a better price on food grade resin because there's more of it, and having like a specific feedstock like industrial resin would force the ecosystem to scale up in all the sense. So this is it. And thank you for your time. And you guys have been busy and you're getting there. So keep up.
Thank you, Chris, for your comment. Our next commenter was Dustin Mays, but it looks like Dustin has left the meeting. So we're going to move on to Suzanne Jones. Give me just a moment here. Okay, Suzanne, if you could just unmute, say your affiliation, and provide your 2-minute feedback.
Okay, did I succeed?
You did.
Excellent. Hey, thank you all very much for your service. I am Suzanne Jones, Executive Director of EcoCycle. Really appreciate all the effort you guys are putting into this. The fact that it's meeting number 28, I think is a good indication. So thank you. A couple of comments. We'll also supply written comments, but first off, on the matter of expanded foam, I just wanted to clarify that yes, EcoCycle accepts number 6 white block foam at our Center for Hard to Recycle Materials, or CHARM, here in Boulder, and agree with Rick Cater's statements about being really clear that it's the block foam that we accept and not all the other confusing types of polystyrene. So that's one thing. Second is thank you for focusing so much time on eco-modulation. We think it's an extremely important topic. When we have talked to folks in Europe about their system, one of the things we hear is, yeah, we didn't do enough on eco-modulation. And so we haven't really reduced packaging like we wanted to. So I think getting this right is very important. That said, we understand it's very complex and will be iterative. So hope that it's very much tied to a rigorous analysis each year that looks at the impacts and adjusts things to make sure we're getting the outcomes we want in terms of reducing packaging overall, and also think that recyclability is key. Totally agree with Liz Chapman's comments about recyclability locally. It's crazy not to incentivize glass here in Colorado. And also toxicity and LCA are 2 factors we think we should incorporate as we can. So thank you, and we'll be weighing in more detail later. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Suzanne. And we will go to our last commenter, William Hoffman. William, if you can unmute, say your affiliation, and provide your 2-minute feedback.
Hi, this is William Hoffman. I'm a grad student at Denver University. I just wanted to make a comment about, I do think that a timeline should definitely be considered when applying the eco-modulation rules. One reason is that Colorado hasn't really had a statewide recycling system. And I think that taking the time to adjust to that is important, so that facilities have a better understanding of what they can output to the state, what is available on the market for these recycled products that eco-modulation is trying to encourage. And yeah, I think that's very important for the industries to adjust and be able to have that market availability. Yeah, and thank you all again also for the work you do on this. I think it's super important. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, William, for your feedback, and thank each of you. We will compile all comments received, and we're going to include them in the meeting summary. Now, as a reminder, you can submit written comments as well as your questions at any time by email to eprcomments@state.co.us. I'm going to turn it over to Scott for the meeting summary and next steps. Go ahead, Scott.
Great, thank you, Brandon. And I want to thank all speakers for the presentations for today. I want to thank the advisory board members here for your questions and comments. As the last commenter said, hey, or a couple of them said, boy, it's a lot of meetings here, and they're really showing appreciation for all the work that you're doing. We are at that time for a recap, talk about next steps, and then adjourn. Really, the basic recap is that Megan and I here at PSI will draft up notes from today's call. We're going to be flagging any of the follow-up items and helping Pete out with that, and Alex for coming back and trying to get some answers to your questions. And the meeting materials will be posted on the department's webpage within the next few days. And Brandon hopefully has posted that link in the chat. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the next technical work session, which will be focused on eco-modulated fees as one of the items, is on July 25th from 10:30 to 1:30, 10:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. So please join us at our next scheduled advisory board meeting on August 14th from 12:30 to 3:30 Mountain Time. And members of the public, stakeholders, thanks very much for attending. Those with public comment, great comments, really appreciate that. We value all the input and the partnership and appreciate the time that people have taken out of their day to be part of this producer responsibility program development. And we hope you will continue to stay connected and share the details of this program with others so that they learn about it as well. I will close by saying thank you to the board again. And we're always grateful to your input and appreciate all the time that you've put into this. So with now, it's time to adjourn. So can I get the last big vote for the day, the adjournment, a motion to adjourn? I see Scott's gotten coming off. He's about to do a motion.
Scott the Five Glass Packaging, so moved.
There it is. Saw it. Do I hear a second?
Clinton Sander, A1 Organics, I will second.
Thank you, Clinton. Okay. Any opposed to adjourning at this time? Seeing none, then the motion has been approved unanimously. The 28th Producer Responsibility Advisory Board meeting is now adjourned at 2:45 p.m. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, too.
Thanks, everyone.